Hey everyone, back again here with Unicorn Bolt, talking again about our playoff finals we've got coming up this weekend. And again, with Unicorn Bolt, so we saw Cam Hunt yesterday, seeing Unicorn Bolt today to talk about those games, or that game in particular. And Unicorn Bolt, how are you, sir? Made it to the final. How's that feel?
I'm good. Excited to be here. Was a little bit of a hairy one last week going into to Monday night down, and needed some zeros on the other side to win. To be honest with you, and lucked out. So I'll take it. I'll take
Yeah,
it.
pulling off the win by less than 10 points, about what is that, nine? Not nine-ish points there over the Diamond
Yeah.
Dogs, if you count the percentages there. Um, yeah, I mean, scary, especially too with how it went, with Gerald Everett not getting anything. So projected those 9 points, and he just had a goose egg. Um, I just went from there. Keenan Allen did his thing and pulled out the win there. Um, it's one of those games that's always just scary to watch because you're down a chunk and you're trying to figure out if you can claw back. But you did it. You're here. Did going into that game, were you expecting to kind of come out with the win, or was that something that you weren't 100% sure about?
No, so I don't know if anyone, well, probably some people noticed, but I way overthought things. I was like, all right, I'm down 15. At that point, I had Keenan Allen, Mike Williams in my lineup.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, he's got two Chargers players and he's up 15. Well, this is a shootout. Everyone's going to score. And I was like, well, the way for me to win is, and I put Deion Jackson in thinking there was, everything I read all week was that, there's going to be a split in the backfield and
Right.
maybe he gets me. If I don't trust Mike Williams, to be honest with you, and
Right.
it's like maybe he'll at least give me 8, 9 points. Keenan Allen do the rest. I'll be good. And so I put him in, and that was not a smart move.
Yeah.
But thankfully, the zeros on the other side pulled it out.
Mike Williams has been frustrating this year. I had him in another league, and it was just I felt like it was miserable. Like I had him and Deontay Johnson, and funnily enough, you have both of them too. And like each time I had one of them in the wide receiver two slot, I never felt like comfortable or happy about it. Um, I remember reading Deontay Johnson is about to break the record for like most consecutive catches without a touchdown or something like that. He hasn't had one all year, like something crazy. So I can imagine that was tough. Other side of the bracket, which is the crazy piece, we've talked about how that was the weaker side of the bracket, the Rutger Raggy, fullbacks great again, Dan Flash's side, and either Rutger Raggy or fullbacks great again would have beaten you or Diamond Dogs this last week had they played you. Does that intimidate you at all going into the finals match against Make Fullbacks Great Again, who dropped 180 last week?
Um, I mean, intimidation, no. My team has been kind of good, not great a lot of times, and so um, I might need maybe a little luck last week and maybe a little luck this week. I know there's a lot of, oh yeah, I'm the favorite, and then I look at my team and look at my matchups and look at the injuries, and I'm like, I don't know that those projections make a lot of sense. Like it's got Mark Andrews projected at, or had him projected at like 13 points, and he hadn't scored that many in 2 months or something like that. So I think it sets up to be a pretty close one, hopefully, and
Yeah.
kind of just hope the coin ends on the right side.
Mark Andrews, another person I had in that league that I was just referencing as well. And yeah, I got eliminated in the first round of the playoffs because Mark Andrews has been
Yeah,
super inconsistent, it feels like, recently. So, um, I, especially too, depending on if Huntley plays or if Lamar plays, or it is a night game, so you do have that in your pocket. But when you look at it, you could go with Cole Kmet, but how crazy would, in a sense, would you be to start Cole Kmet over Mark Andrews? Like you have too many decisions to make. It almost feels like with your roster.
yeah. So they announced that Lamar is officially out, and
Okay,
so at
okay.
least I know that. But yeah, these decisions, I've got a couple of them that I'm not used to. Like, do I play Deontay Johnson or Mike Williams? Do I play, like you said? I'm still considering putting Komet in, and you know, I don't know if I can do it just because like you say, if Andrews goes off and I don't have him in there, I feel like a pretty big idiot. So
Yeah, that would be.
I'm gonna do some overthinking all weekend, and it'll probably be last second. I'll make a switch and
Yeah,
regret it, but that's okay.
12:59. Do you
Yeah.
think something that we talked about with me, Code, and Cade is that you almost have an advantage in the sense of all of your quarterbacks play at 4 o'clock or later, so you can kind of almost gauge how the game is going, then make your decision on whether or not you want to go with Huntley in there, or Gino in there, or Cousins in there. Is that something you're going to be thinking about doing during the games this week, or are you just going to kind of set it and try to run away?
I don't think at quarterback I will make any changes. There's some other spots where, depending on how things go, maybe I'll think about that. But I'll probably be locked in whoever I decide at quarterback by the first games anyway.
Makes sense. How much do you think? And look, I know in reality the answer is 0. It doesn't matter. But how much do you think getting the scoring crown of the regular season? How much of an impact does it make for you? 2,325, almost 100 more than anybody else across the 14-week season. And then when you look at your opponent in Make Fullbacks Great Again, you've scored on average 300 points more than him this season, or not on average, but about 300 points more than him this season. You've already beaten him twice to get that second seed, and here you are against him again in the finals. In reality, that doesn't mean anything, right? It's this week in a vacuum, but does that give you like solace at all that, okay, well, at least I've beaten him twice. I've scored more points than him by a long shot. Does that sit in your mind at all?
No, it's kind of irrelevant to this week anyway. I'm glad it happened. I'm glad I beat him. I'm glad I had the most points. I guess there's a little bit of cash with that. So,
right.
A little bit in the back pocket already, which is nice to have. But as far as this week's matchup, no, I don't think about that at all. Like his team improved so much over the year with the moves that he made. It's his point totals now are not what he was doing at the beginning of the year because
right.
of all the deals he swung. And I mean, Burrow, that's I know we'll get into it a little bit more, but that's the scariest thing for me. Like he single-handedly could put up 40 points this week, and I might think I'm winning, and he puts up 40 plus Boyd plus whatever,
right.
I mean, it's over. So,
and you have no players currently playing, if I'm not mistaken, in that Monday night game, the Chiefs versus the Bengals. He has currently.
I won't have anyone in that game, period. So I'll be done at that point. And just I hope I've got a lead at that point, and hopefully it's a comfy one. But hopefully I've got any lead, and at least then then there's a chance. So.
It's going to need to be a comfy one with Joe Burrow, Tyler Boyd, and Tyler Boyd is a feast or famine receiver. Like we see both of his flex plays are super feast or famine. That's why we've seen those barely 100-point weeks. That's why we've seen those 180, 200-point weeks almost. Because that game should be nuts. The Bills and the Bengals there battling for the AFC in the top spot potentially there. Speaking of some of the moves that Cam Hunt made, we saw Cam Hunt start to sell early, right, with that Saquon trade, and then you made some big moves of your own. And Brown out, I think, out of the gate, 3-0, making moves, biggest contender at that point in time was kind of making a name for themselves. And then you sat here at 2-1, and you said, okay, I can play too. And you bought Alvin Kamara, and you started making some moves of your own to kind of shore up your roster. You obviously made the trade earlier on in the season for Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson. You're not locked out in a sense, but Geno Smith and Josh Jacobs have been playing, incredible. So that's been nice. But what made you kind of say, I'm going to go ahead and push the chips all in here too, when you saw what your division looked like and that your division rival was 3-0 out of the gate, buying Saquon Barkley, who was running back 1 at the time?
Yeah, for me, some of it, not a lot of it was pushing all the chips early on. I kind of, when I'm making trades at that point, I was looking for value or looking for, things that I didn't like on my team or try to improve some spots. So, I came out of the draft, I think, with Tua and Cousins at quarterback, which I was kind of okay with, but
right.
Didn't feel great. And then you were, we were chatting about, I guess Swift. I knew you were into Swift, and I accidentally overpaid in the draft for Swift,
right,
and I was like, okay, let's see if we can make something work, and so we swapped. I guess I gave you Brees and Swift and whatever else.
It was Andrews. I think you sent. I sent Algier. Yeah, there were a couple in there, but yeah, it was like you ended up with a Lamar, Mark Andrews stack, and I got Brees and Swift, plus change here and there as well.
Yeah, there was a bunch of other stuff. I got Zeke and flipped him again, and so I was just making moves for my team, short term and long term. There was no all in at that point. I liked my team, but I wanted to make sure I had depth, I think that's one of the reasons that got me here. Lamar goes down, and I've got the pieces to plug in there. And I know I overpaid for Chubb at the time, and it definitely hasn't paid off. 2 firsts and Watson and Mac Jones for
Right.
Chubb and Geno, but I didn't want that Jones contract, and I like Geno enough this year, so I think those pieces really gave me some something to fall back on when
Right.
injuries come up. So I didn't want to be one of these people that's I'm rolling out Josh Allen and you know Zach Wilson. Oh, I'm good until someone gets hurt, and then you've got
When you're in trouble.
nobody in there.
Right.
So,
I think it's something you look at with the Diamond Dogs roster composition. You look at their starting players, and you're like, oh my God, they'll take anybody. But then the injuries start to happen, and not so much there. So that was a priority for you. Building your roster was having the depth pieces versus pure superstars.
yeah, 100%. My goal is that if anyone goes out on my roster, I've got somebody that I can plug in there. I was frankly pretty lucky with injuries for the most part this year, and the guys that got hurt, I traded away to you. Like I think like what a difference would be if I still had Swift and Hall. I mean I would probably be in reverse spots with you or somebody else. So, but yeah, so like if Kamara got hurt, well that's why I wanted Chubb. Jacobs got
Right.
hurt. I had Chubb or Kamara, and then the receivers the same thing. It's like anyone who goes down. Keenan Allen missed a bunch of weeks. I didn't phase me at all because I had Dante Johnson or whoever to plug in there. Just someone Curtis Samuel, someone that was good enough. So
Yeah, let's look at your roster a bit more in depth here. So the 10 players that we have in the starting position, we made this a little while ago. I think it's changed a bit, but we'll still talk about it briefly here. Kirk Cousins, Josh Jacobs, Nick Chubb, Keenan Allen, DK Metcalf, Tyreek Hill, Mark Andrews, Mike Williams, Alvin Kamara, and Geno Smith. Some of the primary depth pieces that you have are Lamar Jackson / Tyler Huntley now that we know that Lamar is out. Zonovan Knight, Cordell Patterson, I can't see who that is, Cole Kmet, and Deontay Johnson, excuse me. So plenty of pieces here. I think, again, the starting lineup has switched a bit. I know that you moved out, or you moved Kamara up to the running back spot. Did you move any? I can't imagine you took Josh Jacobs out. No, so he's just down in the flex spot. So no, this has actually stayed super similar there. And again, your depth pieces versus the fullbacks depth pieces are, they're definitely a step up. With the roster that you have here, this is one of the ones that you could hold up against any team and say that this is the best one in the league, probably. But then you look at your path here, and there were some hiccups here and there, but you've made it. So, how would you grade your roster, like on a scale from 1 to 10? Like, do you still see room for improvement, like significantly so, or just a little bit, or again, scale of 1 to 10, where do you see your roster?
I mean, right now at this point, the finals, I feel fine about it. I don't feel like I'm 100% going to win this thing at all. Like I said, I think this is a toss-up. I think at quarterback, especially considering the matchups, I don't feel super comfortable with Geno or Huntley going. Cousins will probably be in there against Green Bay. I'm hoping that's a shootout, but Geno against the Jets, I don't feel excited about.
Right.
Huntley against anyone, I don't feel excited about.
Right.
But everyone else, I mean, I don't have any of the, I guess maybe Andrews is the top, couple position at his position, but I feel good. I don't feel like I have an unbeatable roster though.
Yeah, I think a good way to say it is every single one of your guys is an incredibly high floor.
Yeah.
But there are a few that have an incredibly high ceiling as well. Don't get me wrong, but there isn't a single player here that I would be worried about dropping 5 points and that'd be it, right? Like that could of course happen and you're not ready for it, but for the most part that should be okay. We've already kind of touched on that Mark Andrews has been inconsistent. Josh Jacobs has had a rough go as well in the last 2 weeks, and both those guys up against stout defenses. Mark Andrews against the Steelers, Josh Jacobs against the 49ers. You've already mentioned the other matchups with Geno against the Jets. How much of a factor does who's playing who go into account for your starting lineup?
Probably this week for the first, maybe not the first time, but first time I've actually sat here all week and been like, oh, I don't know about that matchup. You know, it could just because this is the one that matters so much. Last week I felt a lot more comfortable about. Well, I'm definitely not going to pull that guy out. So this week, the Jacobs, with no real NFL quarterback against San Fran. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't feel great about it. But what am I going to do something or not? I haven't decided. So I'm probably the least comfortable with matchups that I've been all year. And I saw Cameron brought up the whole Metcalf versus Jets, secondary Reed and Gardner there, and it's like, oh, that could go very poorly.
Yeah.
So it's the first time I've really like dug into each one by one and been like, okay, that can I do anything or not? And maybe there's not much I can do anyway. Just hope.
With the game on Thursday night, also CeeDee Lamb putting up 24 points against the Titans there, barely getting the 100-yard for that bonus there, so that's in his pocket. If I told you in advance that Robert Woods got 14.9 points, which is what he did, he's on your bench. If I told you in advance he got 14.9 points, do you think you would have taken the spot of any of your starting wide receivers with Keenan Allen, DK Metcalf, Tyreek Hill? Or do you think you would have taken over a flex spot there with Mike Williams or Josh Jacobs, or not so much?
I mean, he was never a consideration. Like there was not a world where I was ever going to start Robert Woods. Now, if you told me I can have 14 points or Mike Williams,
Right.
I would probably take the 14 points right now.
Yeah. Fair enough. Let's take a look at the fullbacks roster here. Biggest discrepancy for me, God bless Cade, but the quarterback could be scary. Now, I know there's some matchups on your side that we're not excited about, or that we're maybe a little bit worried about, but Brock Purdy, I think, out of the 6 starting quarterbacks that each team, has, and I'm counting Lamar Jackson and Tyler Huntley as 2 different people, even though I probably shouldn't. So out of the 5 starting quarterbacks, really, Brock Purdy's got to be the worst one there, but Joe Burrow, I think, at the same time, is by far the best one there. So that they kind of help each other out. Other starters on the team are Mondre Stevenson, Rashad White, CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Adams, Devonta Smith, Greg Dulcich, DJ Chark, Tyler Boyd, Joe Burrow. Key backup players potentially Gus Edwards, Antonio Gibson, I can't remember, Brandon Cooks, Treylon Burks, and Chris Olave. I'm getting better at looking at people's faces and knowing their names. So I think the other piece, too, is the depth players aren't the strongest for the fullbacks. And while his starting players are all incredible, we've talked about his wide receiver core a lot recently. His running backs are really good. Joe Burrow and Brock Purdy, in theory, should equal what your quarterback should be able to put out. But his flex players are so feast or famine. Gibson's been all over the place. Gus Edwards has lost touches, obviously, since J.K. Dobbins has been back. Brandon Cooks has not looked like Brandon Cooks as much as usual. Olave and Burks have looked good, but Burks can't play because the game's already happened, and Burks picked up 12.6 points. Olave still questionable to play against the Eagles 4 hours ago from this recording. Still questionable to play, and even if he does play, then you're going against the Eagles' defense there. But when you look at it, what scares you the most on this roster?
It's definitely still Burrow, like I said before. And frankly, even Purdy, as much as skill wise, I think like you say, he's the bottom of all those guys. Purdy against Vegas or Geno against the Jets. If Purdy was on my roster, he'd probably be in there. I think right. Vegas is going to be terrible, and maybe they run the ball. Maybe the 49ers run the ball all day. But even if he throws a couple passes to Kittle or Ayuk and they run him 80 yards, who knows? So I think the quarterback's the biggest advantage. His receivers are great. He made that point. His starting receivers are great.
Right.
CeeDee's already put up his points. He's happy about that. Adams, I think, is a question mark this week.
Right.
But he could still catch 10 balls for 50 yards and be fine. So it's interesting. Now I just looked at his lineup and I saw that Dulcich wasn't in, and apparently he's on IR. So he's going through some injury stuff too, which is wild. So
yeah. So Cade Otton has moved up into the starting lineup here with that news about Dulcich. So that's that is a pivot that we don't even have on this sheet here. That's a little outdated here. It's the only other tight end he has on his roster that's eligible to play. He has Okanowo, who the Titans tight end who already played, who only had 5 points. Yeah, that one. So that he is stuck with K-Dot and per se, or anybody he can find off the waiver wire. But tight ends are, obviously it's slim pickings out there, and I'm sure he'd be happy with just 6 or 7 points from that position. And it's just interesting. Gibson also, by the way, declared out for this game on Sunday too. So 2 of his players are, I guess 3 of the players out of the 15 here are not playing or can't be used in Treylon Burks' case. When you look at the depth and the lack thereof, really, of what's going on with fullbacks, does that give you an edge in your head, or do you think that the starting lineup's enough to be scared of?
Yeah, I think that's kind of those flex spots are the only spots that I feel like I have the advantage. Like, and so if his flex guys outscore my flex guys, I think it's going to go pretty poorly for me. So I think I need to at least have a bit of an advantage there, and hope that happens.
Let's take a look at lineup side to side here. Quarterback battle again between Burrow and Purdy versus Cousins and we think Geno. We'll see. You've got time to make the decision.
Say Geno.
Yeah. So I think that's fairly even. Other than I think that Burrow will make up for whatever Purdy can't do. But then again, Purdy's scored 19 points in his lowest game so far this year. So. Yeah.
Exactly.
When we look at the running backs, it's a different world, right? You've got the older, more proven Kamara, Chubb, Jacobs versus the younger, up and coming with Rachaad White and Ramondre Stevenson. No other really running back there other than Gus Edwards if something went wrong. But if I'm not mistaken, those are the only running backs on his roster. Now Stevenson's questionable, but has been playing. We expect him to play, and the Patriots make everybody questionable as well. Rachaad White totally fine to play, but if not, Gus Edwards would be the next man up. Unless he decides to stay true to his name and go with Kyle Juszczyk, God forbid, or Keontae Ingram or Ty Chandler. There's nothing else really there for them. But they're when you look at their receiving core, that is scary. Again, you've got the name recognition with Tyreek Hill and Keenan Allen and Mike Evans, DK Metcalf, but 3 of the receivers in the top 10 for the fullbacks could be spooky. But to your point, the flex spot is really where a big canyon is for me in terms of what should happen, right? We've seen Tyler Boyd not do well. If we look at his last couple of games here, clicking on stuff, his last couple of games, 5, then 14.5, then 0, then 10, then 3, then 6. So he had great games when Higgins was out, or excuse me, when Jamar Chase was out, but inconsistent. DJ Chark, same story, 17.8 points last week. Week before that, 2, then 21, then 15, then 9, then 0. So it's total feast or famine, which has gotten fullbacks here, but you've gotten here through the floor and the consistency. That being said, you've also put up big point weeks of your own, so it really is up in the air for how this game goes. Of course, you want to pick yourself, but do you have a prediction on how it would go, or we can kind of do the same thing? Well, let's do that. Well, it's the same 3 questions that we did to Cam Hunt before we wrap this up, so you already know what they are. Spoiler alert. So complete the sentence, right? Make fullbacks great again, wins this game because of blank.
I think he wins this game because of Burrow. I think a 40-point night plus is in the cards against Buffalo. I hope it's not,
Right.
but I think that's the way that it happens.
And then same question, but for your side, the Kung-Fu Pandas win this game and take home the final because of blank.
I think just the depth. I think if I can get 10, 15 points from these role guys in the flex and all my receivers, I think that adds up enough if I can get it across the board.
And then how fitting is it that 2 of the teams that have made it here, you and fullbacks great again, are from the division of death. It's lived up to its name. We coined it before the season really even started, or right at the start of the season. You're both here. Somebody mentioned in the chat as well, I think that was Cam Hunt actually called out the fact that, so it is Cam Hunt, did call out the fact that B. Flynn looks like he should win The toilet bowl bracket, there's again a weird world where it's a three teams tie at 2-1, but I don't think that's going to happen. He should do that. Miggs won fifth place, and a nail biter against the Diamond Dogs. It probably would have come in third place or fourth place had it gone differently. How fitting is it that it's two teams from your division here in the final?
Yeah, it's pretty wild that whoever coined it prior to the season, all of us, just loaded up during the season as well, and especially Cam Hoon, who at some point I was like, he's not a threat, and then all of a sudden, as the weeks go on and he's making some more deals, it's like,
wait a minute,
this is a three-headed monster, and I think it's pretty fitting that there's two of us here.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's going to do it for us. Do you have any final thoughts or anything you want to talk about before we go ahead and wrap this up?
Nothing for me. I'm excited for the weekend. I'm sure I'll be nervous when the evening games are on there on Sunday to see what's going on, or maybe it'll be over one way or the other before then. But I'm pretty zen about fantasy. Excited either way, how it goes, and looking forward to the off season when that comes up too. So
yeah, so still 1 week left, just a few days. We'll see. I think one of my favorite things in all of fantasy football, just from a weird standpoint, is when a game comes down to one team needs to score a certain amount of points on Monday night and the other team doesn't have anybody in. I think there's something more fun and special about games like that, and it really is fitting that I think that we can agree the best player. Maybe we don't agree. I'm sure you'll think differently, but the best player from both of these teams is probably Joe Burrow. And the fact that he will be the deciding factor on Monday night in a good game against Buffalo is really kind of fitting, and should be a really fun end to our season here. That is going to do it for. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I know. I agree with you 100%. I think Burrow is the highlight here. And if it was against anyone else, maybe I wouldn't feel this way. But I mean, that's got to be a high-scoring game. I don't know what the over/under is right now. Like I said, I hope I can up enough to have a little bit of a lead, but I'll be watching either way, and I do hope it comes down to Monday either way. It makes it a lot more fun for everyone. So
we'll have to do something. I'll have to talk to Cam Hun. I think it would be, depending on how the game looks, I think it'd be kind of fun to maybe do something together, the three of us on Monday at halftime of the game, just a check in and maybe a little bit of smack talk if the situation fits, where if Cam Hun's down by 15, 20 points coming out of halftime, or 10, 12 points at a halftime, I think it'd be fun if the three of us got together and maybe talked. So we'll see if that can happen. Maybe it won't, but I think that'd be just kind of fun if the situation presents itself in a perfect way. But maybe you don't want that to happen because maybe you're up by 80 points and the game doesn't matter.
No, I'm up for a watch party if you want to jump on Discord there on Monday.
That'd be fun too.
Just start off in the chat either way, and there will be no smack talk for me. I wish Cameron the best of luck.
Oh, what a guy.
I hope everyone performs for both of us. And it's a crazy. I hope we both put up 200 points just for the entertainment purpose.
Just for the fun. That'd be great. I would love to see it. That does do it for us this week. Appreciate you guys for coming in and taking a peek at this. And we'll see you on the other side, whoever ends up taking it all home. So we'll talk to you guys then.
Awesome. Take it easy.